Perfect. Thank you so much. Thank you to Jill and Mary for having me and ISACS for putting this together. It is absolutely fine if you want to stay off camera. Snow days, it seems like it's snowing everywhere except New York City right now. So welcome everyone. Today we are going to learn how to avoid hostile meeting takeovers together. And I am going to take over your screen temporarily. Hi, I'm Claire. We're going to talk about meeting facilitation again today because I'm very passionate about facilitation, and meetings are a place that I think facilitation is often needed the most and seen kind of the least because no one is ever taught how to run a meeting, and even fewer of us are given the skills, tools, and resources around facilitation. And so I'm determined to kind of help everybody out with that. Today, we are going to identify various meeting types that we have. We're going to discuss what to do when participants want to take us down a different path and kind of grab that wheel from us. And we're going to emphasize the goal of a meeting and how that can help us be better leaders and facilitators. We're going to do that today by doing some spectrum responses. We're going to do a little bit of writing, so be sure to have a pen and paper kind of handy. And overall, we're going to learn how to avoid hostile takeovers during a meeting. On Tuesday, I asked you for kind of questions and answers that you'd like, questions that you'd like me to answer throughout these sessions. And so today we'll kind of be covering these three questions that people submitted. So we'll be covering kind of how do we handle participants who violate meeting norms. We're going to answer how to kind of create a culture of positivity. And we're going to discuss how we can avoid the monopolization of a meeting with participant almost monologues. And I really loved that phrase, almost monologues. I think we've all dealt with those through our times. So before we get officially started, or to officially start really, what I'd love is for everyone to unmute themselves. You don't have to come on camera, but if you just want to unmute momentarily, I will count down 3, 2, 1, and then we're all just going to wave and say hello, good morning to each other. All right. Wonderful. 3, 2, 1. Hello, good morning.
Hi.
Just love to get everyone's voice in the room because we're not in a room, we're in a Zoom. And so, okay, my next question for everyone is what is your goal for this meeting? What is your goal for the next 30 minutes? What is one thing that you want to get out of this? I'm not going to ask you to share this goal. I'm just going to ask you to write it down for yourself. So you don't, there's no performance around these goals. They don't have to be noble. They can be whatever's going to help you kind of stay focused and get something out of the next 30 minutes, because these are your 30 minutes as well. Give everyone a second to do that. When you're done, you can just look up or give me a thumbs up if you're feeling the urge to do that. If you're off camera, you can just send an emoji or use the chat. Okay. Gonna give everybody about 5 more seconds to write down your goal for this meeting. All right, perfect. So next we are going to do some spectrum responses, and I'm going to ask you a series of questions. This is really just to help you kind of consider your current planning processes and how you feel right now in your meetings. So I'm going to screen share, and then we will get started. Okay, so now that I've screen shared, annotation should be available for everyone. So if you want to, go find this pencil icon in the lower left-hand corner of your screen. It should be on your Zoom screen. If you can't find it, find that audio button in your bottom toolbar and hover about like ½ an inch above it, and it should pop up. Once you've got that annotation button, this toolbar should appear, and go ahead and find this check mark or the stamp. And once you've done that, feel free to give me a stamp anywhere on this page. All right, seeing some stamps coming in. If anyone is confused, feel free to ask a clarifying question. If anybody just isn't interested in stamping, that's totally fine. You can have your answers in your mind. All right, wonderful. Okay, you can stamp it up as much as you want for the next 3 seconds. Just go wild, click as much as you want to, get all those clicks out of your system. Okay, three, two, one, and stop stamping. Love the smiley face. All right, wonderful. So my first question for everyone is just what types of meetings are you currently running? And it's okay, it's great if you run all four. Feel free to put a stamp in all four boxes, but just which types of meetings are you currently running? Team building, brainstorms, informational decision making. And the other thing I'll say about this is sometimes one meeting is all four of these things. So that's okay too. Okay, great. So we're definitely doing a lot of team building. Seems like the spread is pretty even. Informational seems to have informational and brainstorm are kind of tying for the bottom there. Okay, great. So I always like to think of the type of meeting as kind of the overall outcome of the meeting. What we're here to do today is to make a decision, is to gain information. So for these next few questions, I'm going to have you stamp where you fall on a spectrum in relation to the statement that I'm going to read. And I'll teach you how to do this in person when we are at the end. So just place your stamp on the spectrum wherever you fall, strongly agree, strongly disagree. So my first question is, or my first statement is, I give myself enough time to plan my meetings. Strongly agree, strongly disagree. Okay, great. Next statement. In my meetings, the same people tend to share over and over again. Okay. I'm taking those neutrals as depends on the meeting. All right. Next statement. I typically get through my entire agenda during a meeting. All right. Got a bit more of a range on that one. I know how to start meetings efficiently. Great. I love that we had a very efficient, strongly agree there. That was perfect. Um, I feel confident navigating conflict when it arises. Okay, wonderful. Seems like everybody's got at least a few tools for navigating conflict. And my final statement for you is I leave most meetings feeling satisfied. Great. All right. We got no strongly disagrees on that one. That's wonderful to know. Okay. Great. Thank you all for being game for spectrum questions. How you would do that in person is just establish a spectrum in the room. So this side of the room strongly agree, this side is strongly disagree, and you just have people physically move themselves. What's wonderful about spectrum responses is you get a lot of information from everyone without anyone having to share out loud. And people also have to commit to picking a spot. And so you can really use this with any questions that you or any statements that you want to get response to from your group. Similarly, if you just want to have people like five is strongly agree, one is strongly disagree, and just have them tell you that way, we can get information from our groups however it benefits us to get that information. So wonderful. Okay. Great. Thank you all for reflecting on your meetings. We're going to talk a little bit more about meeting goals today and kind of how having a goal can really help us stay centered when anyone wants to kind of veer us off course. We know where we're going and we have a plan to get to that destination. Our group doesn't have to know the exact plan, but it's always helpful when they know where we're hoping to end up because people like to have kind of purpose in what they're doing. And also, it just helps us kind of create a uniting force, as I like to say. So I like to think of meetings as like creating a small team, and I'm the captain of the team, and the goal is to win the game. And the game of the meeting is kind of the goal overall. So why have a meeting goal? It creates a uniting force. So everyone has some understanding of why we're here doing this thing together today. It helps the group understand the outcome that we're going for, and hopefully that will kind of mitigate any behaviors that people tend to naturally have of asking questions. One of my favorite ones to get in the middle of a meeting is, why are we doing this? And having a goal is a great way to respond to those questions. And the other thing that we can do with the meeting goal is we can circle back to it whenever it's necessary. So whenever we're reestablishing kind of the purpose of why we're doing something, we can go back to the goal. So if somebody asks, why are we doing this today? If the goal is to walk away with a decision, you can say, we're doing this because we're going to make a decision. I need everybody to consider these factors before we get there, which is why we're having this conversation. So we just reorient the group around the goal. A lot of times when people are disrupting our meetings, they're not doing it to purposefully antagonize us. It's genuinely sometimes out of curiosity, but also humans like to kind of test boundaries. It's like a very natural thing that happens. And so sometimes disruptions are very small and we can just immediately reorient people to the goal and kind of move past that disruption. And sometimes when disruptions are a little bit larger, when the energy kind of shifts after someone says something, if two people start to disagree, we need to kind of create a larger reorientation and kind of create a before and after moment so that everybody can kind of resettle back into the meeting and go towards the goal. So when we have a larger disruption from our group, what we need to do in those moments is act like a facilitator. So ACT stands for acknowledge, contain, and time box. So what we want to do in these moments is acknowledge that we see what's happening. So if we're having a brainstorm and two people start to have a very heated discussion about their ideas and saying one idea is better than the other, we want to disrupt that moment by stopping that conversation. And then we want to acknowledge what's happening in the most neutral language possible. So instead of saying, I see there's some disagreements, we can say, I see there's a lot of energy around this, or I'm hearing that people are very passionate. And so we want to describe the shared reality so that everybody knows we know what's happening. We're still in control. We're still leading the ship. And we've seen what's happening and we know what's happening. Then we want to contain it. And creating containers is something that a lot of facilitators will say. And for me, creating a container just means that we are containing the moment by changing the rules of engagement, at least temporarily. So if before we were all having a discussion, now I want to have people write, or I want to change one of these factors. So instead of having a discussion with everyone, I want people to turn to the person next to them and discuss something that's happened. If there is a disruption and you need a moment to kind of game plan, my suggestion is always to contain the moment by having people write. Just write down what they're thinking right now, write down any questions that are coming up, and that'll give you a minute or two to kind of plan your next 2 or 3 minutes to kind of get everybody back on track. And then time box, you want to set a literal timer whenever possible because timers are a wonderful co-facilitator. They will interrupt people for you. So if we have I can allow 5 minutes to have this discussion, and then we have to get back to the agenda because today we are leaving here accomplishing the goal. So I can give you 5 minutes. I can give you 3 minutes for this. And then if you set a literal timer, when the timer goes off, time's up. We have to get back to this. I will follow up with you after the meeting. And that way people feel witnessed, seen, but we didn't have to spend the entire time just acknowledging what happened and dealing with that situation. We put it in a container and we timed it. And when the timer went off, we put a lid on the container and we went back to our originally scheduled programming. So acknowledge, contain, and time box. And I will give you a resource that has more about this. So don't worry if you missed some of that in my speech. Okay, so acknowledge, contain, time box. I would love to know if anyone has any acknowledgement kind of statements, phrases, any helpful things that you use in your current meetings that you'd like to share with the group. I think we have a wonderful group of people here who all have tons of experience during meetings. So if there's anything that you say, a neutral statement, a redirect, helpful suggestions, I would love if you could just put those in the chat, and that way everybody can kind of gain the collective wisdom of the group. And if you don't have a go-to, that's okay. one of your colleagues in PAIS shared that hers is to say, I appreciate that this is complicated. And I think the word appreciate is doing a lot of heavy lifting there because it allows people in those moments to feel witnessed and feel like they've been understood by someone. And so I really liked that as a neutral language statement of just, I appreciate that this is happening. I see it happening. Okay. Great. What I'd love to do next is to have everybody pull out a piece of paper and a pen, and we are going to do a little bit of writing. And if you've heard of this facilitation exercise before, we are going to do 5 whys. So once everybody's got a piece of, thank you for being open about that. Oh, wonderful. Thank you so much, Christine. All of those are great. Thank you for being open about that. Sounds important. And this issue could use some future attention. All of those are wonderful ways to recognize that something has been said, not give it too much attention in that moment, but definitely witness people so that they feel seen, heard, understood. And then you can definitely like circle back and move on to your next agenda item. Okay. Now that everybody's got a piece of paper and a pen, what I would love you to do is to fill in the end of this sentence. And I'm going to encourage you to keep this sentence as short as possible, just a 1-sentence response. So, as a facilitator, it's important that I, and finish that sentence. Okay. Great. Now, right below that sentence, in direct response to what you've just written, why is what you just wrote down true or important? And write another 1-sentence response. Why is what you just wrote down true or important? Okay. Now, reading that last sentence that you just wrote, right below that, why is that sentence true or important? People just want to give me a thumbs up when they're done with their latest sentence. Okay, give everybody about 5 more seconds there. Perfect, thank you. Okay. And again, why is what you just wrote down true or important? And one last time, why is what you just wrote true or important? Okay. And once you've got your final sentence, what I'm going to invite you to do is open up the chat and just type in one of the sentences that you wrote down, whichever one you want to share. Don't hit send quite yet, but just type it into the chat. And if I can ask for just one more thumbs up when everybody's got that in there. Okay, give everybody like 5 more seconds. Perfect. Thank you, Abby, for the emoji thumbs up. Great. Everybody can go ahead and hit send. Meeting. Meeting feels like a waste of time. Bella, I love that you mentioned snacks and improving the spirit through food. I think that that is so key. And especially one of my biggest tips for meetings is don't have lunch set up in the same room. Don't let people see food that they're not going to be able to eat in the next 2 minutes. Once everybody is thinking about food, you're going to lose them in 5 minutes or less. But also, I once had a co-facilitator who was very obsessed with sugar crashes and making sure that that didn't happen. So we had to find the exact right balance of snacks that were engaging and not overwhelming. Okay, we've got some really wonderful responses. It's important to make decisions. Included our mission statement we can deliver for our students. Chris, do you want to say more about if a meeting feels like a waste of time, it will kind of spark resentment, or was that from your
That was me. My,
perfect?
um, I mean, sometimes I feel like if they felt that it would have been better delivered as an email, I wouldn't have had to bring them to the space.
Mhm.
Then they would have more time to prep or do whatever they need to do. And if they have more time to prep, then they feel more prepared for the children. And if they feel better prepared for the children, then they may feel their practice is going positively. So down rabbit hole of information.
Wonderful. Yes, I really love that you've emphasized that kind of ripple effect of preparation and planning, people having time. I think time is truly the most precious resource because we have no idea how much of it we actually have. And when people feel like it's being wasted, it absolutely, I think the word resentment is perfect. I always think it plants a seed of resentment at the very least. It might not sprout right away, but we just want to keep that soil non-resented, non-salted. And so that's really, really wonderful. Thank you so much for that. Um, so I want to make sure that everybody has the resource that I've put together. It's in the chat now. It will also be available on the resource page. But I've gone ahead and created a very brief workbook for everyone around that ACT kind of thought. And so in the workbook, you'll find a scenario for both a connection and a brainstorm kind of interruption moment. And so you'll have three kind of facilitator processes that you can use to kind of move through that moment, or you can wildcard it and choose any that work for you. There's so many facilitator resources out there, including like liberating structures and things like that if you need more structure for your moment. And so there's a page where you can kind of fill in your own thoughts, how you would contain it, how much time you would like to allot to it. And then I kind of have my back of the book teacher's response of one method you could kind of do if you so choose. I always like to remind facilitators that everybody's got a different facilitating style, and it's really important that we lean into what our most authentic leadership style is, because authenticity, I think, communicates so much to our groups about how much we trust them and respect them. I like to say that I am a soul cycle style facilitator. I'm quite loud, lots of energy coming at you. And that works for me. And so it tends to work for my groups. But for people who I think are more kind of on that yoga teacher style spectrum, if they tried to emulate me, it wouldn't go the same way. And so people also respond to their energy. It's just a different, it works for different people. Not every, I also like to say, not everybody's favorite part of the meeting is the same part. And so the more we kind of vary our meetings and have different things that different people enjoy doing, we can kind of overall raise that satisfaction. So hopefully everybody's enjoyed the things we've done together, but I'm sure there are people who enjoyed spectrum responses more than five whys. And so since we got to do both, hopefully everybody leaves feeling like they got to do at least something that they enjoyed today. I do want to leave you with just one more thing, which is power phrases. A lot of meeting disruptions happen kind of the same way over and over again. And a lot of times I feel like we as facilitators get nervous about the same things happening. And one thing that we can do for ourselves is just to have phrases and kind of go-to moves so that we don't have to think about them in the moment and we can just say, I know what I'm doing here. Those almost monologues and things like that, cutting people off is a great facilitator skill to work on because what we have is a responsibility to the group. So we want the group's time to also be utilized well. And if one person is taking that mic over and over again, we want to make sure that we're in control of the mic and we're giving it and taking it back whenever possible. And so I used to be very afraid of interruptions and interrupting people. And so my go-to phrase became, I'm going to pause you there. And I can jump in with that one at any time. And people don't mind that phrase I found because the pause implies that maybe at some point I'm going to unpause them. And even if I never do, that lingering moment allows me to kind of have a thought from them. Okay. We're coming up on the end of our time together today, and so I would just love to know from everyone, what is one thing that you want to remember from today's workshop for yourself? So I'm going to give you 1 minute on the timer. You can feel free to write this directly in the chat or write it on a piece of paper. We are going to share these with each other before we leave. And so you have a minute and just one thing you want to remember from this workshop. Okay, timer's up. If everyone could go ahead and open up the chat and just share one thing. Power of a goal, thinking about the type of meeting, act, 5 Ws. I do want to shout out 5 Ys is a problem solving um, process that was created by the Toyota company, I believe in the 70s. And it's a great way to get to the root of a problem by just asking, why is that problem happening? And we can phrase it in a million ways. Obviously, today we did a very positive 5 Ys, but I do find it's a great way to drill down very quickly to get to the root of why something is happening. Beauty of the container. Yes. I love to ask folks to write while I gather my thoughts. The other thing you can do is take a big drink of water. So you can always buy yourself even just a little bit of time. You can also have everybody take 5 deep breaths. That's another go-to of mine. Okay. We have reached the end of our time together today, so I do just want to invite Mary to close us out. But thank you so much to everyone. And we are gathering together again on Tuesday, January 20th, same time, same Zoom link. So I hope to see everyone there.
Well, first of all, I have to say how great it is to be together with this little cohort. And Claire, thank you for this amazing way that you uh, whip us through this half hour. We go. This is like meeting bouillon, meeting pure bouillon. Yeah, so we all have to unpack it a little bit, but awesome. And hope you all can make the next one. And we'll sign off for now. Thank you, Claire. Thanks, everybody. Have a good
Thank you
day.
all so much. Have a wonderful rest of your Thursdays. See you next week. Thank you to Isaacs for having me. This has been so much fun.